you all are doing good. In the last video, we spoke about Azure Administrator interview questions. In that video, we spoke about the day-to-day responsibilities and a few non-technical questions that are being asked in the interview. In this video, we will again start with the self-introduction, which where we talk about the roles and responsibilities. Then we'll also talk about a couple of questions on the Azure virtual machines, like what is an availability set and availability zone, when do we need availability set and availability zone, and how availability set is going to help us in providing high availability solutions. At the same time, you might be asked what is a fault domain, what is update domain, and how to explain those, and how to get more confident while explaining these to the interviewer. Okay, and one of the good feature that is proximity placement group. So most of the customers have started opting for this feature, and how this feature is going to help us in the real time. So these are the couple of questions we'll be talking, and we'll try to explain you in detail so that you are very much confident. At the end, I'm going to summarize everything, and I will explain to the as a candidate to the interviewer. Okay, as I mentioned, we'll start with the our introduction. If I'm giving an interview to somebody else, I'm right. So how I present myself, how I showcase my skills to the interviewer. Well, I would start with my experience that total years of experience I have, and let's say I have 10 years of experience with IT, and I started my career as a infrastructure administrator or infrastructure engineer, where I used to work on Active Directory, VMware, and Hyper-V, and Office 365. Um, and later I got an opportunity to work on Microsoft Azure platform, and it's been almost 3 years or 4 years been with the Azure platform. And as part of this team, I take care of creating virtual machines and managing the virtual machines. So when I say creating virtual machines, sometimes I do create a VMs through Azure portal, and we do have AR templates which we build for a specific requirements. So we start building the templates and deploy through DevOps pipelines, or sometimes we use PowerShell to deploy. It's all depends on the use cases and the business requirement. We deploy the VMs, and once the VM is deployed, we also do the validations, whether VM is deployed in a corrective subscription, resource group, location, VNet, subnet, whether the virtual machine has the correct NSG configured, ASG configured. NSG is nothing but network security groups. ASG is nothing but application security groups. So, and we also validate whether VM is correctly sized. So did we choose the wrong VM size, or correct VM size or not? We validate. So we basically do the validations as soon as the VM built, whether you built or somebody else built. So validations are must. In case if you are getting more VMs getting created, so you have to find out some automation. Sometimes I do work on such kind of automation to validate using PowerShell. So as part of my day-to-day roles and responsibilities, once the VM is built, I do the validations, and I ensure that a virtual machine has backup configured and disaster recovery configured. So some customers request to configure backup for only for the production, and um, for non-production they are not much worried, so we ignore it. But few customers request to configure backup for the production, non-production both. So I configure backup, or I ensure the backups are configured and they are working well. And when it comes to the replication, so we use Azure Site Recovery for the disaster recovery solutions. In case if one of the regions down, so we do failover to the another region to ensure that customers are not impacted, the applications are not down for a longer duration. In this case, we are not avoiding the downtime, but we are trying to reduce the downtime with the ASR. So we configure the replication, and we ensure that replication is always healthy. In case if the replication is critical or warning, I try to troubleshoot those issues. And we do have a patching solution implemented for our Azure virtual machine using the Azure Update Manager. And as part of the solution, we configure the production and non-production slots every month. As soon as Microsoft releases the patches, we try to implement in non-prod, then we go for the production environment. So as part of my day-to-day responsibilities, so I ensure that all virtual machines are connected to the Log Analytics workspace. In the Log Analytics workspace, we have integration of the Azure Update Manager, where all the virtual machines are being patched. So I ensure that the Microsoft monitoring agent in all Azure virtual machines are healthy, so that it can, capture the performance metrics as well as the updates information inside the virtual machine. In case if the agent is not healthy or not available, then I try to troubleshoot those Microsoft monitoring agent issues. And if the patching is failed, I try to troubleshoot if there are any issues from the Azure side. If there are any issues at OS level, so we do have an OS team of Windows and Linux. So they try to troubleshoot and I actively collaborate with them. And adding to this, we do get requests to modify the ports or add the port numbers in the network security groups. We do associate the network security groups in a subnet level, and there could be sometimes situations where application server is not connecting to the database server. So I get a chance to um, review such issues using Network Watcher. And in case if there is a requirement to add a port, I review with our business owners and get a change request processed and implemented. So we use a ServiceNow ticketing tool for creating and managing the changes. So as soon as the change is approved, we are going to implement it. So likewise, sometimes I get a request to add a disk to the VM if some that is because the application is writing more data to the server and there's a disk space issues. I get a request to add a disk and I get required approvals from the business as addition of disk incur the cost. So I get the approval and I try to add the disk to the VM. Then we'll try to fix the space issues. And sometimes, we get a request to increase the VM size. I for that as well, I get approvals and implement the change. So likewise, we get issues like performance issues where application is very slow and users are not able to access the application. Could be some connectivity issues. Sometimes we get a request to configure point-to-site VPN. Sometimes we get a request to add users to the specific resource group, subscriptions. Using RBAC, we try to review and add the users wherever is required with the proper approvals and justification. Sometimes users says that they are not able to access to the Azure portal, so we use Azure AD Connect to synchronize on-premise AD user accounts to Azure AD. So try to troubleshoot. Sometimes I get a request to add custom policies in Azure. I try to create a policies based on our business requirement. So I create a PowerShell scripts to automate certain actions like installing a monitoring agent remotely on multiple servers, antivirus application on multiple servers. So I build a script and try to install remotely. So likewise, there are many actions I do on Azure as Azure administrator. So this is about myself, and it's not limited, and I kind of explore myself and start learning myself. And whatever I do, I document, I share it with the team members so that they are also aware of the known issues. So this is about my roles and responsibilities on day-to-day basis. It's a very lengthy introduction that I've given, but it's not necessary that you have to explain everything to the interviewer might stop you in between because Azure administrator has a lot of things to do. If you are a VMware administrator, you just manage the VMware console. If you are a Windows administrator, you just manage the Windows. If you are a network administrator, you manage the network in the on-premises world. But when it comes to the Azure administrator has more scope. He has to do a lot of things. So um, you might get a chance to work on many things in Azure. So everybody the interviewer expect that you know everything, many of these components. So when you are explaining to the interviewer, you just try to get the points gathered and put them into a order and try to give a short explanation to the interviewer. So no need to explain in detail. Maybe I just given because you can get some points and add the relevant ones when you are explaining to the interviewer. All right. So that's about the introduction. So now going back to the virtual machines topic, there could be questions like, um, so I have an application. How do I ensure that my application is highly available in the Azure virtual machines? So before we talk about the solution, okay, let us try to understand what is the problem and why the problem is occurring. Okay, so that you'll identify the solutions, right? So the problem, what we generally face in the Azure environment is the virtual machines are going down many a times. Okay, so let's say you have a virtual machine and that is where you hosted your application one, right? So this VM is running in the backend, uh, and the host is managed by Microsoft. This is a physical server, and this is being managed by Microsoft. And what happens is, as part of the security best practices or new features Microsoft introduced, so they tend to upgrade this host, or they tend to install the patches into the physical host. And because of that, the physical server might be rebooted. Because it is rebooting, the VMs running on this physical server will also be rebooted. That it's not only your machine running in this physical server, there are other customers' machines also might be running, which you don't have visibility at all. So all the virtual machines might be rebooted when the physical server is rebooted. But this is the planned maintenance. Okay, this is the planned maintenance. Okay, so which means Microsoft will let you know well in advance that they are going to perform some patches to their physical data center, and your virtual machine has been identified. You have been identified as the customer where your virtual machine is running on this physical server, and your virtual machine might be down during this maintenance window. And Microsoft will also give you an option to you to choose your own downtime window, because they give you some downtime window saying this. So during this time, the VM automatically gets rebooted. But you can also plan this downtime and plan this downtime and move your virtual machine to the healthy node in the backend. So which means, um, let's say on Sunday they are going to perform the patches, right, automatically. So you might take a window on Wednesday or Thursday and move your virtual machine to another node where patches are already applied. So here you can plan downtime and inform your customers and get this done. Okay, this is the planned maintenance, and this is one of the costs where your virtual machine is not available. And how Microsoft is going to ensure that your virtual machine, I mean, two or more virtual machines are not down at the same time, we'll talk about it. The other possible cause could be unexpected downtime situations. Okay, which means like, all of a sudden, say, power cable might be having some problem, maybe a huge network outage, maybe a physical server is experiencing the heavy performance issues, and the physical server is unavailable. Because of that, your virtual machine is not available. Maybe some issues at a storage end, and that's why the physical server is not working as expected. This is something like unexpected, downtime situations, right? So you can't expect these things. You cannot predict them, and the issues might occur automatically. That is called unexpected downtime. Because of these two reasons, your virtual machine may be going down um, while you're running on Azure as a virtual machine. Okay, so how do you ensure that your application is highly available during these situations? So what we generally think is, let's build two virtual machines on Azure and have the same application running on the Azure. Same application one will be running in the two different servers, and you have some load balancer in between the traffic will be distributed to one of the virtual machines, whichever the VM is available. So this is the mistake that everybody does. So they keep when they think that if one VM going down, you have another VM available. But unfortunately, if these two machines are running on the same physical server in the back end, and if this physical server is down, your both virtual machines will be down. So that is the reason Microsoft introduced a concept of availability set. So with the availability set, what happens is you are going to let Microsoft know that these two virtual machines should be highly available. Okay. So at any cost, both VMs should not be down. That is what you are going to inform or indicate Microsoft with this feature. So with this feature, what happens is when you add two or more VMs into availability set, Microsoft will ensure that two VMs are not running on the same physical server. The VMs will be spread across different physical servers in the data center. Okay, just in case of any planned maintenance or any unexpected downtime, the physical server is down, you have another virtual machine running in the another physical server. So it this is all happens with the algorithm that they use it. They have a concept of fault domain and update domain. So when they are performing this planned maintenance, what they do is they allocate update domains to your physical servers or the racks. And that has been taken care in the backend, and you don't have any visibility of it. That will be automatically assigned. When they are performing updates, they perform updates to UD0, update domain 0, then update domain 1, sorry, update domain 2, and update domain 4. So if one update domain is down, you have another update domain which is highly available. Okay, that's how they ensure that VMs are highly available. And they also ensure that when you keep the VMs in availability set, the the rack where your physical servers are running or virtual machines are running is very having dedicated power supply, dedicated network circuit, so that very rare situation the fault might happen, the unexpected downtime situations might happen. So with that being said, Microsoft will not give 100% guarantee on uptime and connectivity of your virtual machine. They will not give. So what they do is they will give 99.99% of SLA, uptime and connectivity, in a given month. So your virtual machine will be highly available for 99.99% if you keep the VMs in availability set. Otherwise, it will be less. So mostly it is 99.95%. Right? So this with this concept, the virtual machines are highly available um, during this unexpected downtime and fault, I mean, planned maintenance situations. Okay, so this is the concept of availability set, and let's talk about one more thing, um, the proximity placement group. We call it as a PPGs. So what is the use of this proximity placement group? All right, so I'm taking an example here. Let's say you have an application server. Okay, this is your app server, and you have a database server. So application server always connect to the database server because they do the, I mean, when somebody requesting some information, that goes to the database and database will provide the information. Let's say this is in availability zone 1. Okay, AV zone 1, and this is in AV zone 2. So what you generally hear from customers or users are they try to access the application is accessible good, but when they try to query information, that is taking some time because the application should go to DB and fetch the records. There could be some delays in processing the request. There could be some network latency. So with the proximity placement group, what happens is you are going to keep these two virtual machines in the same availability zone. Okay, it will be in availability zone 1, and you're going to group these two virtual machines. They are physically located very nearby, so that the network latency between the application to DB is reduced. You don't see high latency between this application to DB server. That is the reason proximity placement groups are being used. And one more thing I forgot to discuss is availability zone. When do you need availability set and when do you need availability zone? And what is AV set versus AV zone, right? In simple terminologies, okay, AV set, okay, is can be configured within a data center. The VMs will spread across the different racks in the data center, okay, and the file domain updates domains are given in a rack level. Okay, the VMs will be separated with the different update domains and file domains, which means they are in a different racks or different host. But everything is configured in the one data center itself, which means you are providing high availability for the VMs, okay, when there is a rack level failures or there is a node level failures. But in case if the data center level failures occurs, availability set may not be helpful to you. Okay, but again, Microsoft has already agreed on a certain SLA. Okay, they will try to give 99.99% uptime of your virtual machine when they are in availability set. They will these node level failures and rack level failures will be taken care uh, when the VMs are in availability set. Okay, the 0.01 percentage is what the downtime situation that might occurs at rack or node level. Okay, but it's very rare scenarios that you see the 19 less than 19.99%. If you see that, Microsoft will be ready to provide the SLA refund. Okay, that's about availability set. With availability zone, what happens is your VM1 will be there in one data center and VM2 will be there in another data center within the same region. So that in case of the data center level failures occur, you have another VM running in a different data center. That's the concept of availability zone. All right. So if the VMs are in different availability zones, there could be um, latency issues. That's why if you want to keep the VMs in the same proximity placement group, that has to be the VMs has to be in the same availability zone. And in case if the VMs are part of availability set, right? Let's say they are part of different availability set, you cannot configure the VMs in the same proximity placement group. They should be part of the same availability set if you want to configure the proximity placement group. That's a concept of proximity placement group. And one of the simple question interviewers might ask you, I have a VM which is already part of availability set. Okay, I have another machine which is not part of the availability set. Can I add the existing machine? I mean, can I add the VM which is not part of availability set to a existing availability set? Once a VM is created, you cannot add the VM to availability set. You have to delete the VM and recreate with the existing availability set. There is a PowerShell script, that we can use it. It is available in Azure documentation. That will move your VM to an availability set, though it was not added in while creating the VM, but indirectly in the backend, it is going to delete the VM and recreate in the availability set. That is what the script does. All right. So this is about a couple of points about the Azure VM availability set, availability zone, and proximity placement group. All right. So there could be a couple of other questions with respect to the VM, like how do I choose the correct virtual machine size? How do I choose the correct location for the VM? Okay, what should be the naming standard you have to follow? And very common question that you see is a user is not able to connect to the VM. What kind of steps you follow to fix it? What are the steps you follow to fix it? Those kind of things we'll talk in the next video, because if I add more in this, I think it will be a bit difficulty for a few people to understand. We'll create another video. In that video, I will talk in detail about them. Okay. Thanks everyone for watching this video. See you on the next video.